What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I like to say that you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I was the 2018 winner of Innovation by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and we're just here on Get Vocal. This is a groundbreaker tonight on Get Vocal and also for the Dr. Vibe show, home of Epic Conversations, host of Epic Conversations. Before we go any further, I just want to shout out a few people on the Get Vocal platform. I want to say hello, big hello to Bobby. Hello, big hello to Dead. Hello, big hello to Badges. Hello to Big Bad Brad. And hello to Shannon. Thank you so much. It's a Friday evening, and I usually do not do Friday evenings at 10 o'clock Eastern time, Epic Conversations, but hold tight. There's a reason why I'm doing it. Now, we have a new friend on the Dr. Vibe platform, Keturah Kendrick, and let me give you a little lowdown on her. She's the host of a groundbreaking podcast called Unchained, Unbothered. She fancies herself as an ambassador of freedom for the 21st century woman. She sees it as her mission to convince women across the globe that they are enough for themselves. In addition to featuring globally minded women whose choo-choos, non-traditional paths on her show, she has written about the triumphs and challenges of living out loud while female on her own blog, Yet Another Single Gal. And for numerous publications such as Single Girls Rock, Non-Parents, The Unfit Christian. That when I read that, I said that is a very interesting title.
I love that blog. I love the creator of that blog, Danielle Thomas. She's my spirit animal, my homegirl in my head. I'm sorry. Go ahead on, Dr. Vibe. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, I may want to find out about that story, but let me finish up. I'm going. And the Not Mom, another interesting conversation topic. She regularly writes for Medium.com, and her first book, No Thanks, Black Female and Living in the Martyr-Free Zone, will be published in June. Welcome for the first time and live from Shanghai, China.
Yes.
Keturah Kendrick, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me this morning. I put on a full face of makeup to be here. On Saturday morning. I got on blue lipstick and everything. I'm ready for this conversation.
we did this in the pre-show, but tell people who are watching this live or on the replay, what time is it right now where you are?
It is 10 a.m. Saturday morning in the People's Republic of China.
There you go. So this is a barrier breaker for myself, as I said. I've never had a epic conversation with someone in China. And also, I believe it's the first time for the Get Vocal platform in China. You are the first. I'm happy to have you. We are going to be chatting about the importance of listening to your voice. In Keturah's journey, the voice has been very, very central. And you'll hear as we get some of her journey this evening, how important the voice is to her and probably how important it can be for others too. But before we go any further, tell us about the young Keturah. Where did you grow up? What was life growing up like?
Well, I tell people that I have had a great life so far. I'm from the U.S., of course. I grew up in the greatest city on the planet. And I do not say that with hyperbole. The greatest city on the planet, New Orleans, Louisiana.
All right.
The greatest city on the planet. And because I grew up in Louisiana, I developed an inadvertent food snobbery, because I was under the impression that food just always tasted yummy, no matter where you cooked it, no matter where you ate it. So I take food very seriously. If you have not been to New Orleans, Louisiana, you don't understand why. But if you have spent even a moment in that wonderful city, you understand why food is terribly important to me. I'm a Southern girl by heart. And I have this sort of natural, like I tell people, I'm always, hey, sweetie, how you doing? But then within moments of meeting people, which especially living abroad can put off some people, they're like, okay, that's a bit much, back up. So I'm from New Orleans, but I spent most of my adult life in the other greatest city in the world, New York City. So when I was about 26, I left New Orleans the beautiful and moved to New York City just in search of, I guess, larger, greener pastures, wanting a change, wanting to explore some parts of myself that I felt couldn't necessarily be explored in the city of my birth. And I lived in New York City for about maybe 14 years. So in general, I think if I could describe what it was like for me growing up, I felt I had a comfortable upbringing. My parents were divorced, but I was very, very loved. I didn't appreciate the uniqueness of New Orleans until I left it, and didn't necessarily understand how much it had formed my identity as a person, especially as a Black person. New Orleans is the blackest, most African city in the United States of America. It's my identity a lot. And I often say to people when they ask me why I'm leaving my overseas life and going back to the States, I'm returning to the love of my life, New York City, because I love that city deeply and was not prepared for how much I would miss it. So yeah, I've had a wonderful, wonderful upbringing, and I'm extremely appreciative that the core of who I am was formed in New Orleans, which is an amazingly special city.
Well, before we go any further, a few things I want to shout out some other great members of the community here. Dre from New York City. He was saying he was saying that the best city is New York City when you said the best city was New Orleans. So now, and unfortunately, he's not on right now, but he should have stayed on because you gave NYC some serious props.
It's a tough call. It's a tough call. There are two. I've had the great fortune of living in two of the best cities in the country, so it's a tough call. Tough call.
And on YouTube, someone says hello to you. There's someone named Christopher Williams.
Hi, Christopher Williams. How are you?
I don't know if you know him, but it sounds like, he goes, "Hey, Keturah." So it sounds like he knows you.
Yeah, I think that is Chris from New Orleans.
There you go.
We were in the same writing workshop for many years, and we know literally it's only like 5 people in New Orleans, and you just know all of them. So Chris kind of my cousin, but not.
All right. I get it. I see it there. And Christopher says, "Yep." So that is the Chris you're talking about. Absolutely. Describe, if you can, your dead saying your play cousin. There you go. So what kind of parents did you have? Like, you did say that they divorced, but you said you still had a good childhood, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, my parents were two people who sort of were very different. My father was very, very rigid, very responsible, very set in his ways, and it instilled in me my sense of practicality. Like, people think, "Oh my goodness, you're so adventurous. You just left the US and moved abroad, and oh man, you do all this traveling." But literally, I was clear, I'm gonna need a job. I'm gonna have some money in my account. Like, my life is not as extemporaneous as it may seem. And I think that comes from my father. He was a very practical man, had some very clear goals. I'm gonna work this job for 30 years. And I'm gonna leave my kids some money and a house, right? My mother probably understood who I was as a thinker and a writer. And I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like my mother wasn't as practical as my father. She wasn't as stable or responsible when it came to sort of finances and setting up systems. But I felt like, as a child, if I had to say what parent understands me, like Keturah, the most, not because they just love me and they want to support me, but understands me, it would probably be my mother. It's funny you mentioned the Unfit Christian, because I was raised in New Orleans as a Seventh-day Adventist. For a very brief moment, my father was an elder, not the head pastor, but an elder in the church. By the time I was a teenager, I started to sort of question the whole concept of God. And found particularly fundamentalist Christianity a bit repressive and counterintuitive. So I haven't claimed Christianity, oh my goodness, in almost over two decades now. So I was raised in a highly Catholic city. New Orleans is very Catholic, but since New Orleans is New Orleans is a breed of Catholic to begin with. So I was raised in a sort of very fundamentalist Christian household that was sort of slack and loose on the fundamentals of Seventh-day Adventism. But I also went to an SDA school up until about year 10 or 11. So in some ways, the culture of New Orleans, sort of laissez-faire, eat whatever you want, drink, party, was in a bit opposition to, I think, the tone and tenets of the SDA church. And again, my parents are more on the side of, we Seventh-day Adventists, I guess. Our names are on the membership, but we don't really as far as it goes.
Okay. And what sort of education did you acquire during your journey?
I went to Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist church school up until 10th grade. Then I graduated. My last 2 years in high school were spent at John McDonough Senior High School on Esplanade Avenue. I was too much of a scaredy cat to actually go away to college. So I went to undergrad literally about 2 miles away from my high school at the University of New Orleans. Graduated from UNO, I think in like 97, and had just sort of did a bunch of office jobs or whatever in New Orleans till I was about 26 and then moved away. I went to little bitty church school for most of my K-12 education, and then went to a rough high school for my last 2 years, and just went to a regular old public university, met some cool people, took some film classes, a couple of anthropology classes, just sort of hopped around and somehow eventually graduated into the world of work.
Excellent. You spoke a little bit about your parents. What, if any, values did they instill in you when you were younger that you still carry with yourself today?
A good question. I think the value of being kind, particularly my mother, being kind to people, unless they truly, truly deserve it, don't cut them off. Don't cut them off. Like, just generally be patient, be kind. From my father especially, being thoughtful in how you live your life and the choices. And in many ways, although I identify as a secular humanist and an atheist, the values of the Christian church, I think the true disciples of Christ, I think I have embodied quite well. Compassion, being grateful and grateful to humanity, wanting to help others, and just giving grace to those who may be struggling with something. I think that they instilled in me well, and I do think that comes from just who they were as people, but also their values as disciples of Christ.
Okay, so you finished school. What was your next step in the work world?
I finished UNO, and I kind of floundered around. I spent my very early 20s bitter and confused for reasons clear to me. I realized I didn't really necessarily think about what happens after university. I went to school and I just took classes that interested me. I had a major, of course. I was majoring in communications, and all the classes in the communications program seemed to speak to what I liked doing. There was a lot of English, there was a lot of film, there was a lot of media, artsy stuff. But I graduated like, oh, so what does one do now? And because I was in New Orleans, which is, again, a wonderful city, but when it comes to choices and variety and 9-to-5 work or pursuing certain passions, I didn't see much options for me there. I think my first job was like office managing, like a glorified secretary at some small business. I did a lot of temp work. because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And to be quite honest, I had thought very little about after I got my diploma, what does one do? I had the great fortune of discovering the No More Literary Society in New Orleans when I was about a year or two out of college. And it's basically a writing workshop that was led by Kalamu Yasalam, legend and I think an icon, particularly in Southern Black literature. So he fostered and developed and devoted a crazy amount of his personal time to developing the voices of a lot of young writers who were in their 20s, young Black writers in New Orleans. When I discovered NOMO, two highly pivotal things happened to me. The first thing was that I discovered I genuinely had always had a voice as a writer. Like when I think of all of the things I wanted to pursue and I kind of dabbled in, it's been the one thing that's been consistent. I wasn't sure I'd be employed in it. I was always writing something. And I discovered like, oh, this is who I am. I'm a writer. And I didn't quite know that or own that. The second thing was that I discovered and formed connections with other young Black writers who to this day truly inspire, sometimes intimidate, but mostly inspire myself as a writer and as a huge lover and appreciator of Black culture, Black literary culture. Again, I'm from New Orleans. It's the blackest city. It's the blackest city, the most African city in the United States of America. So those, I think I was a part of NOMO for maybe 3 or 4 years. Those 3 or 4 years in NOMO truly, again, if I had not discovered the NOMO Literary Society, I'm not quite sure who I would be today. And I guess it's the 3 pivotal things too. I met a really good friend of mine in the NOMO Literary Society who I moved to New York with, Lynn Pitt. So she was a writer in the workshop too. She decided she was going to go to graduate school in New York City to complete a novel. And I was tired of living in New Orleans. And I decided I'm going to go to New York City and do something. I know, maybe I'll be a comedian. I don't know how I came up with that, but that just sort of felt right to me at that moment. So NOMO was pivotal. It made me truly value and appreciate the culture of New Orleans and Black literature and just Black culture. And at the same time, I was going through a period in my life different outside of my hometown, and I wasn't quite sure what that something different was. At that moment, it seemed like that's the something different.
I want to ask, especially, what was the voice inside of you that made you start taking the literary journey?
That's hard to describe. Like when we talked about what the focus of this conversation would be, it is a useful topic, but such an esoteric, not a concrete way to describe it. The only thing I could say is the first time I went to a workshop session. And first of all, workshop lasted literally all night. We get there at 6, and sometimes we would not leave till 1 o'clock. Anyone who had something to read, to be critiqued, would read and get critiques. The first time I sat in a workshop, it just felt right. I think it's what people, when you ask somebody, how did you know your husband was the one? Or like, it just felt right. And I think it felt right. And there were times when it was painful because I thought I was brilliant. Brilliant. And they were like, no, this ain't brilliant. And I was like, wait, excuse me, wait, what? So there was times when it was difficult, but it always felt right. And I also felt like I had found my tribe. Like in NOMO, people were concerned about the same things that concerned me, not just writing and authors, but we vibed a lot and had similar conclusions and similar thought process in a lot of things. So it just felt right. It felt like all the things that I thought of as hobbies or just things I did in my spare time, that this is sort of who I'm supposed to be. This is on. And other people on this path, they have 9-to-5 jobs like me. Some of them are starting families. Very few of us are like making a living off of just writing at this point, but it all feels right to all of us because there's also a social component to NOMO as well. So it just felt right And it felt like one of those things that turning away from it would have been silly or would have felt wrong. It just felt like right. It felt like home. It felt like home.
Fantastic. Before we go further, just want to shout out some people who joined on the Get Vocal platform. Greetings. I may have said it already, but greetings to Herbie. Greetings to Simply Ally. Greetings to Stephen. Greetings to Keenan. Greetings to Monica Black Diamond. We're having another epic conversation. This time we're speaking with Keturah Kendrick live from Shanghai, China. Now I know the video is a little bit choppy, but hey, it's Shanghai, China, folks. So
Look,
I'm glad
the internet's working. Just be happy. The internet is working.
your audio is fine. The video's a little choppy, but no one's leaving, so they're being kind. So I appreciate everybody. Right back at you, Monica Black Diamond. Hi, all my diamonds. Good stuff. And she's saying, hey, Keturah Kendra. So let me get this out of the way because someone's gonna ask, but I'm gonna beat them to the punch. What does your first name mean, and how was it given to you?
Oh. Shockingly, I grew up explaining this, so I'm ready. Keturah, for those of you who you got a Bible next to you, Dr. V, go to Genesis chapter 25, verse 1, and you will see. Yes, there's a man who takes his place seriously. I appreciate that. Genesis 20.
Yep.
Genesis 25, 1. Keturah was the second wife of Abraham, not Hagar. Let's just be clear. Hagar was not up. Keturah was Abraham's second wife. Keturah bore Abraham 6 children. Now, as far as what the name itself means, I am unsure. But I do know that Keturah in the Bible was Abraham's second wife. That's all I got. And I grew up literally, I know the verse by heart because either I got 1 or 2 reactions to my name, like, oh, that's pretty, or wait, what? So I grew up saying Genesis 25, 1.
Yeah, there we go. And Abraham, there we go. Then again, Abraham took a wife and her name was Keturah.
That is me. I am the Keturah who Abraham took as a wife.
And verse 4 says, and the sons of Midan, Ephah, and Hanok, and I'm brutalizing these words, these names, Ibada and Eldah, all these were children of Keturah. So there you go. So there you go. Absolutely.
My predecessor stayed knocked up. Bless her heart. Mm-hmm.
All right. So that question is answered. So you spent some time in the United States, and then your voice told you to go to Africa. How did that happen?
Another great question. I'll tell you the exact moment when my voice was like, it's time to go, and you're going to Africa. So I had always had wanderlust. One of the reasons why I've been an avid reader is because I don't know who said this, but some insightful writers said basically reading is the poor man's plane ticket, right? So I read a lot because I had always had these visions of being elsewhere. I knew I would be elsewhere, which is probably how I ended up in New York City. And I'm an English teacher by trade. So I spent 10 years in New York City teaching at an all-girls public school in East Harlem. And so whenever I had extra money, I would save, or on school holidays in the summer, I would travel, India, Mexico, just because I was always curious about elsewhere. Somewhere around year number 9 or 10 at this school, and probably year number 12 or 13 in New York City, it occurred to me that I was a bit too comfortable. I had a great friendship group. I was actually in love with someone at that point. It's a whole nother story. But I felt like I don't want to corral seeing the world Thanksgiving break or February break or summer break. I want to see more. I was at my friend's apartment in the West Village on Halloween night at the annual Halloween Day Parade. So Jennifer's apartment has a great bay window view to, I think it's 6th Avenue in front of the basketball courts, where generally when the parade happens, where groups that have little performances to do who are in the parade, they'll stop and do a little. One of the reasons why Jennifer hosts the yearly Halloween Day Parade at her apartment. So I was sitting there with our friends. We had our little drinks. And then the Michael Jackson tableau people who do Thriller dance every walked past Jennifer's house and they stopped to do their little show. And I was sitting there, we all was sitting there watching the Thriller dance. And I was thinking to myself, I'm leaving. This is going to be my last Halloween parade at Jennifer's house. I'm going to go somewhere next year. And I'm not just going to go to visit. I'm going to move. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to move. And so for some reason, Africa spoke to me. I was curious about, particularly West Africa, like many Black Americans, my ancestors are from West Africa. I couldn't give words as to why Africa. I wasn't actually interested ever, to be honest, in Europe. It just never intrigued me as a place to like want to explore and visit. I knew it would either be Southeast Asia or West Africa. And I just wanted to see what it would to not to be the other, to be sort of in a place of the world, in the world where I was not an oddity, that just me, my hair, my way of being was just the way to be. So at Jennifer's Halloween parade, Halloween parade party, I just had this moment of clarity. And my friend Lynn, because Lynn was there too, when I told them later that I was starting to plan to move, and when I had the moment of clarity, she was like, I was watching you at the party, and I was thinking to myself, she's thinking about some other stuff that we ain't thinking about. So I just felt like I needed a challenge. I felt like, again, I hadn't had a big shift in my life in years. And I love my job. I love my friends. I love New York City with a deep and burning passion. So I was very comfortable, but I couldn't explain why I needed to leave. But I just felt like this call, and I felt a call to Africa. So I did not end up relocating to West Africa. I just happened to find a job in East Africa. But when I was in East Africa, I made sure to get it in and travel and see as many on the continent as possible. So I guess the best I could say is I had a feeling, again, much like with Nomo, when I went to the workshop, it felt right. And to not go to the workshop would have felt very bizarre, like something is off kilter. When I started hearing the voice of, you can wait until another fellowship comes up to go to India, you can stay for 3 or 4 years to be able to then explore Thailand or Indonesia or the Philippines, or you can move to these parts of the world and explore them at your own leisure and actually at a lot of cheaper costs too. I just started hearing that voice and I just listened, like, I need to listen to this. And then when it felt like putting it off longer would have been disingenuous to me, I struck, and I realized that it was a lot easier than I had imagined and envisioned it would be, especially when you are a trained educator. Moving overseas is quite easy. I got a job much quicker than I had planned on getting one. So it was just this knowing feeling, this feeling that I need to challenge myself, because I could see myself just being stuck in this rut forever and ever, that I needed to uproot some of the comfort and challenge myself. And most of all, I needed to sort of solve the wanderlust, that I needed to see things. I needed to get that in before I was too old to even really truly enjoy seeing other parts of the world.
Excellent. Well, I thank you for the share, and I'm just going to catch up with some comments here on YouTube. Christopher Williams says the workshop was both liberating and soul crushing, LOL. And he said it also helped him define himself in writing. And also we have Olajide Bello says hello from Lagos. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Says hello from Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes, he's Nigerian. We met in Rwanda. He was also relocated to Rwanda at the same time I did. He was only there for a year though.
Also, Marion Moore says greetings from NOLA.
Hey, Marion.
And Black Ambassador says, hello, family. So Black Ambassadors is saying love from Paraguay. So we've got a real global conversation happening here tonight.
We do, all over the world.
Yeah, this is a global thing. And of course, the great Get Vocal family keeping it real too. What were the memories and some experiences you took and still keep from your time in Africa?
Oh, so many. This is probably not deep and profound, but like I said, I'm from New Orleans. My biggest memory that comes to me a lot now are goat brochettes. Now, if you are not familiar with that, it's basically you take some goat, you grill it, and you put it on these skewers. The most delicious meat ever. I miss and I remember just some really fun, laid-back moments with some friends I met there. Jadi being one of them, my friend Donna Lee. Rwanda as a country wasn't the perfect fit for me. It's a very quiet, small town and very conservative. Many of the countries in Africa conservative, they're also very highly Christian, but it's sort of a quiet, sort of repressed type of environment. So there was a sense of it just being a bit too quiet, a bit too perfect in some ways. But I do have some amazing memories visiting Senegal and realizing that every Black New Orleanian is from Senegal. Like, y'all ain't got to pay no money for those little DNA tests. Just go to Senegal. We from Senegal. I enjoyed the delicious and inexpensive wine in South Africa. Pinotage for like $3 American and some grass-fed lamb. Lovely. I enjoyed Ghana. Accra is lit AF. Just a vibrancy and an understanding of so much made sense as a Black American living on the continent for 2 years. Like I used to make fun of a lot of Black Americans who romanticize the continent and who wanted to go home to the motherland to discover who they were, because I was convinced I was not Black Americans, right? But I do think when I reflect upon that time, there is a level of, even if you don't think you are, you're going there to just get some answers to some questions about, like, how come getting our hair done and making sure we are well groomed, how come that's so important to every Black lady I met? And then you go to Rwanda and you go in the bank and you're not laid out, you don't have your best clothes on, and people look at you like this. While you walk up in here, like, they're like, oh, so this is a thing, you know? Or you happen to be in Accra on Easter Sunday and you drive through the streets and you're like, oh, so coming to church with your best fit on and your church hat is a thing for every Black woman all around the world. Like, this is some majesty walking to church on Easter Sunday in Accra. Like, these women are laid, they're fresh. Like, just the movements, the music, the food, even like seeing, oh yeah, we from here. Like, I knew we were from here, but yeah, we from here. So there were just many moments where I felt vindicated and comforted in some ways. I think I didn't realize how traumatic the Black experience in America is until I went to the continent. Like, there were so many times when I was almost close to tears because I realized I sat on a plane. I was going to somewhere, I don't know, Ethiopia or South Africa, I don't know. And the first time I got on a plane in Rwanda to go to another African country, they started playing the safety video and the people looked like me. Like, it was just one of these moments of like, and it was animated. So it wasn't even like actors. Like, they actually colored in the cartoons, like the cartoon people looked like me. And it was always a cool moment when I got on a plane to know that I am I'm not the other. I am the. So there were many moments of just feeling comfort. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as a woman, particularly as a progressive atheist, feminist woman, the continent was frustrating many times, as many times, and comforted in not being the other. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna have to stab one of these dudes. Patriarchy is alive and well. I'm sorry, Judy. I've tried to avoid this conversation with you our whole time in Rwanda. Love you like a play cousin. But the role in the box for women, and this is a grand generalization. Of course, there are many African women, especially African women who have spent time abroad, who are progressive, who are very much, I mean, look, Chimamanda has made a whole career out of being the African feminist, right? But generally speaking, there's this box for what womanhood is in many African countries. And I have made a whole entire life, a platform out of not just pushing that box aside, but lighting a match and setting that box on fire. So being on the continent as a woman who's very left-wing and progressive, who doesn't believe motherhood is a synonym for womanhood, who doesn't necessarily believe I need to have a husband in order to have the ideal partnership, who doesn't believe in God. It was challenging at some point. So when I think about my experience, it was a very complicated. I think everybody, regardless of ethnicity or race, should visit Africa. It is a beautifully nuanced continent. Each country has its own special trait and characteristic. I think if you are a person of African descent, you definitely should make it a goal to go and stay for as long as possible. So it was a wonderful experience, but I was also clear, yeah, I'm American, and I don't necessarily know if circumstances allowed me to stay here, if I would ever feel completely comfortable because of who I am as a woman. So it was great experience, very nuanced and complex, I will say.
It sounds like it. So then, actually, I'll save, Marion, I got your question on YouTube. I'll save that till near the end of the conversation, and it's flying really fast. So I want to ask then, your voice told you it was time to move from Africa. And why did you choose China?
Oh, how real do you want me to be, Dr. V? How real do you want me to be?
I want you to be real. I want you to be very real. It's not for me, it's for the audience. So they want you to be real.
Let me just be real with you, because part of why a lot of Western foreigners move to quote unquote developing countries, especially when you are a Western trained teacher, is for the ability to stack up some cash. Most of us it's quite a transient field of international teaching, I'll be honest. Most of us want to spend 2 or 3 years in some country or some part of the world and go explore some other part of the world. And we want to travel. Like every single holiday, the foreign teachers are like, where you going? You going to Malaysia? Or you going here? You going to Korea? So we travel a lot, but it's also a way to stack up and save as much money as possible, because they take care of you. They take care of you in the international school world. You get paid a really good salary. You have a housing allowance. And because the dollar goes a lot farther outside of America than inside of it, you can save money. So again, I was not really cognizant of saving money on the lovely continent of Africa. I saved nothing. I saved not a penny. I didn't end up in debt, but literally every single dollar I had, and I kept trying to. I tried really hard. Like, okay, I'm gonna stay in Kigali for this break, and I'm gonna save this money. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know, something came over me, and I'd book a trip to Ghana. I don't know how it would happen. I'd be on a computer, and I'd book a trip to Ghana, right? So I saved no money. The highest pay scale for international teaching is in Japan and China. Right. And once again, I just happened to find a job that suited me best and was the best for me, not just monetarily, but for where I wanted to go with my professional goals as an educator. The best option was here in China, specifically Shanghai. I was clear if I was coming to China that I was not living in a village. little rural village out in nowhere, China. I was going to be in an international city, much like when I chose my city in. I was going to be in the capital city. So Shanghai struck me as an exciting city. I was missing big city life. Like Kigali is the capital city of Rwanda, but Rwanda is a gorgeous, beautiful, yet tiny country. So Kigali was a very small town. And midway through my tenure in Kigali, I kept having these experiences that reminded me, I need a city. Like all this you walk into the coffee shop and you see like everybody from your life. It's just too much. So I went the complete opposite way the next time with Shanghai, because I think it's the biggest city in the world, something next to Mexico City. So I miss being in like a city. So it was the right option for me, but it was almost explicitly based on making up for saving no money. Wow. In Africa, like not a damn dime. It was just, I'm like, I'm gonna say, oops, look, I bought tickets to Senegal. So yeah.
and how has your time been in China?
Oh Lord, it's been something. Let me tell you. Is the People's Republic of China. I'm not gonna get deported to get my internet cut off, but they do things. Woo, I'm constantly like, what they do that at? Just overall, it's been an enjoyable experience. I've enjoyed the friends I've made here, mostly other foreigners. I will be honest about that, but I have become friends with local Chinese people as well. China, yeah.
And I know that you probably have, yeah, I get what you say, China, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Let me y'all just respect and appreciate labor law and teachers union. Because President Xi ain't gonna come knocking on my damn door. I only got 3-4 months before I'm back with the love of my life, New York City. I'm trying to be good, not trying to get in no trouble. But it just like, I think interacting with, especially teaching, because unlike in Rwanda, all of my students at my school here are local. Like they're wealthy and they're here in this school because they want to eventually go to university in the West. But they all are Chinese nationals. And it's interesting, particularly having discussions about literature, about things that come up in books with students who, although they spent their entire K-12 education in an international Western focused school, how growing up and being a part of a nation that's not a democracy, no tolerance or patience for dissent, how that bleeds into the classroom, in conversations with them, in discussion during the class, in informal chats in the hallway and on school trips, conversations with their parents, trying to advocate for kids who really feel like their only shot at anything worthwhile in their future, especially in education, is leaving and going to the UK or to America. Like what parents will allow to happen for their kids to get that one shot. It's been interesting. It's been very interesting. I've enjoyed my time here just as much as I did in Rwanda, but it's been a truly eye-opening experience.
Okay. And I'll leave it at that. I'm just going to catch up on some comments here from, let's see. I haven't forgot your question, Marion, so I was just checking YouTube. And then on the Get Vocal side, Stephen says China has no laws on alcohol consumption, any age, anywhere.
I'm of age, so I consume alcohol all the time. So I'm going to take your word for it. I don't talk to my students about that kind of stuff. Every now and again, some things come up and you have to talk to them, but I would say that's probably right. Like I know there's been a couple of times when, because I'm at a boarding school, I manage a dormitory here in the boarding school. And there have been a couple of times in my 3 years here where girls have been, or even some of the boys have been suspected of having alcohol in their rooms. And this is the conversations I've had with other students. I'm trying to figure out lead me to believe that, yeah, you're right, that there really is no law, because they know that they can't bring it to school because it's in the handbook and they're like, we're drinking at school, obviously. But I don't think the whole, I've been caught drinking alcohol in 8th grade. I don't think that that really, I don't get that response from them too. There's a lot of things like, what I've noticed, particularly when it comes to what we think of as normal or abnormal in the West, is in the realm of relationships and dating. Like, I have seen 2 or 3 of my dorm students who are like in 11th grade with 8th or 9th grade year old boyfriends. Exactly, right? And so the Westerners on staff, because where we're from, that's mandatory reporting. You'd have to report that to somebody and force them to break up, right? But that doesn't necessarily exist here. And culturally, what has been surprising to me is whenever this comes up and we're trying to have this delicate conversation among the Westerners, how do we address this with she's in your house, she's in your dorm, and her boyfriend's in the 8th grade, and she's in year 11. Like, how do we address this? And my first thought is, how does that not social suicide? Because aside from the inappropriateness and age and all of that, if you were an 11th grade girl, the older boyfriend gets you street cred. But if you have a younger boyfriend, even 1 grade younger, it's like you're made fun of. You would just think that was an insult. But it doesn't work that way here. I've seen it happen a couple of times where it literally is a middle schooler and a high schooler. And if the high schooler is a girl, especially, is always surprising to me, because the way we think of it is the opposite when the gender comes. Like, the older boys with the younger girls, that's a thing, and you have to sort of watch out for that. But their impression of that is, it's not a thing that people consider. They don't get made fun of, they don't get clowned. And when you try to have a conversation about why it's inappropriate, even with their parents, I mean, their parents are concerned about their child, and they come in for the meetings, but they're kind of they don't necessarily get what the big deal is, I think. So that's what I've noticed, especially about certain things that we internalize as, oh, that's sort of social taboos,
right,
aren't necessarily translated here.
When did your voice tell you it was time to start leaving China?
Around this time last year, I started to, let me back up. I got some great advice my first few months in Rwanda. I happened to be chatting with another expat international teacher who had been abroad for about 7 years, and she was about to repatriate back to New York, oddly enough. And we were chatting about what made her realize it was time to go back home. So I think she was somewhere in Europe, and she gave her notice to her school. She was like, I don't want to stay here. I feel like I'm done with this country. I don't want to extend my contract. So she told her boss, I'm not going to come back next year. And she did what all of the teachers do. She went on search of social profile and started looking and applying for some other parts of the world. She found this post somewhere in Turkey. And she went to press send, and she said she stopped, and it occurred to her, because she had no idea, why the fuck I'm going to Turkey? Like, what exactly am I going to Turkey for? So I'm going to go and teach English in Turkey. I'll probably go on holiday in other European countries. What's the point of this? Like, so she said to me, you just have to be very clear on why you're doing this. And if your goal is to literally, you just want to every 2 years pack up and visit some other part of the world, if you really want to collect passport stamps, fine. But if you're not careful, your life abroad will become just like your life at home, and you'll just make a bunch of choices, like unplugged, just walking through without intention, and you end up feeling empty. And so she said, for me, I just feel like it's time to go back home and reconnect. I have no reason to still be overseas. And I kind of felt around this time last year, I'm done. Like, I knew I didn't want to extend my contract in Shanghai. I felt like I'd done all I planned to do. I enjoyed China. I went to visit all of the countries on my list in East and Southeast Asia. And I knew I wasn't going to stay another year. And so I started thinking about, where to next? And I couldn't find a reason. I couldn't find a reason to just pack up my stuff and move to some other random country and then teach English and then go on holiday every school trip. It just seemed like I was done. I had written a book. I had taught there is to teach. And I was starting to miss things about my life in New York City. I missed my friends. I missed my routines. I missed the normalcy of being from a place where I spoke the language, where I understood the culture, as flawed as it is. Like, it started to get more bizarre being a foreigner. And I just missed the normalcy of knowing what was going to happen, of knowing how things worked, of just knowing the culture, of sort of being able to anticipate and expect certain things that when you are a foreigner abroad, anything can happen. Like, wait, what? What's going on right? What's going on right now? So I just felt like I've accomplished. I came, I saw, and it's time to go back.
And I conquered.
Exactly.
There you go. Well, we are winding down. The time is flying by.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're coming near the top of the hour already. I don't know if you believe it or not, but a few quick things. There's actually a question on YouTube that I want to give you to see how best you can answer it. So okay. There's a question from Marion Moore from NOLA. She says, what professions travel well? Easy to find a job? Is education the only one, or did you have friends in China and Rwanda in other professions?
Education is the easiest and most transferable one. But I will say I have met friends who have not been educators. I think tech, and I'm not sure what tech means. I think tech is a transferable one. I think if you work for a large conglomerate, like here in Shanghai, I met a bunch of executives, like VPs for, like, what do you call it? General Motors. So if you work for a big company that has offices and works on projects around the world, that often is, if not a Western trained teacher, working for a large corporation that has offices around the world is another way that people come in. I think the very young and non-mortgage people pack up and they do what I call the language center hustle, where if you just have a college degree, you can teach conversational English and you get to visa things settled, you get a little bit of money to carry you through. And a lot of people who do that use that job as their visa job, and they start all sorts of businesses. Because what I have heard from friends I've met, especially in China, that it's much easier and lower cost to start a real business in China and abroad, that you can get a lot more done a lot quicker outside of the States. Wow. But education is probably the most standard one, because especially in countries that are trying to get English instruction and Western instruction infused into their culture, that's probably the one that's a no-brainer, I think.
Right. And hopefully one day I can have you meet. I'll give a digital introduction to yourself. And there's a lady who's on every Wednesday night on the platform here named Leah Miller. And she works for the U.S. Foreign Service. So she travels to different countries periodically. And she just a number of months ago, she came back from Bolivia. And before the end of the year, she's going to Armenia for a year with her and her family.
Wow, yeah, exactly. Foreign services, military, of course. But the larger and more international your corporation or company is, the better chances you are to have that. Like the woman who I met to General Motors was saying that, when they came there and offered her this year contract in Shanghai, her first reaction was to turn it down because she didn't want to uproot her life, but she's glad that she's done it. And she said that the company offers these opportunities fairly often, and she's going to encourage more people to start taking them. So I think if you work for a large multinational company, then that's probably a good way to do it.
So as we're winding it down, what has your voice done for you, and what words of wisdom would you give to our audience live or on the replay about the importance of listening to your voice?
I would say, especially to women, because I think it's very counterintuitive for women to listen to their voice, because we're socialized to listen to everybody else's voice but our own, and to question our voice and to question what our gut is telling us a lot. I would say what has been 150% confirmed for me in my 5 years living abroad, in my whole entire life actually, is I am never wrong. It sounds cocky and arrogant, but it really is just common sense. There is no other person on this planet who knows me better than me. So if your voice is saying this does not serve you, or this does serve you, follow this. I mean, unless you are 18 years old, you've lived enough of life to know how to do it smartly. You're not going to be impulsive and just sell your house and like that. You know what your comfort level is. You know what your boundaries are. You know whether you're bougie or not. You know, so you know how you're going to live this experience. If you are over the age of even 25, you know who you are. And any time you allow the voice of another, and that's not just, that can even be the voice of your mother, to be honest. If you allow the voice of an other to overpower yours, you are making a mistake. You can listen to advice. You obviously should have a circle of especially good sister friends who are like, girl, what are you doing? And you should listen to them, and you should heed the people in your circle when they're concerned about you, or when they just want you to think about some other aspect of a choice you're going to make. But at the end of the day, your voice is not wrong. And if you remember the decision you made 5 or 10 years ago, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Your voice was not wrong at that moment. So I think I'm very grateful that I became good early on at allowing myself to sort of question sometimes I'm doing the right thing, but at the end of the day, choosing what I knew to be right for me at that moment, because I wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm incredibly in love with my life, in love with myself, content in my choices. It's not a perfect life, but content in my choices enough to know, had I listened to all those other voices throughout my life that meant well for me, I wouldn't be where I am in today. So you're never wrong. You're always right. There's no one else who knows you more than you. This is common sense.
Yeah, well, sense isn't always common, you know?
Very true, Dr. V. Very true.
Right. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour, and I know you've got things to do since it's daytime there and it's nighttime where I am.
Got a full day ahead of me.
Yes. So before we let you go, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, there are many ways. You can, of course, follow me on social media. I got Facebook, Keturah Kendrick. I have Twitter, Happy Single Gal. I have a website, KeturahKendrick.com. I have a YouTube channel, Keturah Kendrick. So any of those avenues, please feel free to follow me. I would suggest signing up on my website, because I'll give you little updates and little heads up on things I'm doing. But social media, my show Unchained, Unbothered, I have social media accounts on Twitter, on IG, on Facebook for that as well. So I'm available anywhere, children. I'm here.
Oh, there you go. I've put, for people watching on Get Vocal Live, I've put Keturah's, a number of her different social media platform addresses there on the side. So that's good. And also I will be reposting this epic conversation on my website. So before we sign off here, I'd like to thank everybody who came on. So I'm going to do my best. Bobby on the Get Vocal platform, Bobby, Danny, Tony, Ritz. We got to talk. You need to email me, Ritz. I want to chat with you. Simply Ally, Stephen, Herbie, Shannon, Badges, Dead, DED, not DEAD. Also Brad. There was also Dre. And I think I've got everyone there. On the YouTube platform, we had Black Ambassadors from Paraguay. We had Marion Moore from NOLA. We had Mr. Bello from Lagos, Nigeria. We also had Mr. Christopher Williams. Thank you, everybody, for watching this epic conversation live. These days, I'm just making it short and sweet in regards to myself. If you want to catch anything that I do, especially replay-wise, the best place to go is to my website, thedrevibeshow.com. I'll put the URL address right in the comment section. That will give you a list of everything, conversations, replays, posts, social media, all that kind of stuff. It's all there. I like to close out, as always, with the way I do with all my epic conversations, whether they're webcam live stream or audio live stream. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, and then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Next time, Dr. Vibe will be on the Get Vocal platform. Monday evening, we have Jamie Bowles, who is the CEO of WJMS Radio. Actually, I assisted her in getting her online radio station started 3.5 years ago. We met 6 years ago, and we kept on contact. She's had a successful online station for the last 3.5 years. A few months ago, she got engaged.
Oh, congratulations.
But then a turn happened. She's been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Wow.
So she's in her early 30s, and she's going to talk and share about her journey on how she's overcoming the lung cancer. She's also started a GoFundMe page. So if anyone is interested to assist, she's a wonderful lady. I've had the pleasure of knowing her for, like I said, 5.5, 6 years. I also share content on her online station that gets replayed every Saturday morning. So that's next Monday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Then next Wednesday evening on Get Vocal at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we got the threesome. We got them going. We've got Dr. Tachi, we've got Leah Miller, and we've got Serena Wills. All of them are members of a sorority, and they're going to have a sorority talk.
That's going to be hot.
Yes, that is going to be hot. So I'm looking forward to that. And there are other conversations going on Get Vocal past that. So go to my page or subscribe to my epic conversation on Get Vocal. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Have an outstanding weekend, everybody. And I will put my email address just in the comment section right quick. If anyone would like me to host a conversation, or you want to have me on your conversation, I'm more than happy to share. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good. Good night, everyone. Or good morning, wherever you are.